Our scene opens towards the start of AOSTH's 49th episode, entitled Hedgehog of the Hound Table, which will henceforth be referred to as AOSTH. On the surface level, it's exactly what it sounds like, a mediocre parody of Arthurian legend. But that's not what we're here for today, is it? No, this psychoanalysis will be focused solely on the beach scene that takes place just before Sonic and Tails go back in time. The scene in which Sonic delivers the single coldest shoulder he has ever given anyone. Robotnik included. Sonic's on the beach, about to join Tails in a surf on the turf, when out of the corner of his eye he spots a certain gorgeous face sitting under the shade of an umbrella. Alright, now pay attention because this part is extremely important. The pink-skinned, blonde-haired girl is buried up to her neck in the sand, leaving only her head visible above the surface. Sonic judges her by face alone and wastes no time burrowing right in next to her, ready to ask her out on a date, when suddenly those plans are put on hold as news of Dr. Robotnik's active time travel scheme invokes the hero's call to action. Or at least, they should have been. Except Sonic is entirely dismissive of the crisis, and insists that the only time he's got to spare, he would be spending with his cute little friend. And I know what you're thinking. Really? That's it? That's what you made a call-out post on your YouTube.com for? But while this technically fits the criteria for both sloth and lust, this is not the great sin that compelled me to spam Sonic's socials with the same ominous copy pasta for months on end. It's what happened immediately afterwards. After committing himself to the title of Simp Lord, he puts his arm around her to cement his stance on the matter. Grateful for the company, she reciprocates with her own, but the moment she does, Sonic becomes alarmed by the sight of her squiggly appendage. No sooner does this happen than his new girlfriend emerges from the sand, revealing herself to be an octopus. This causes the lovesick raccoon to immediately change his mind, leaping out of her embrace and speeding away without a second thought to the quest he should have accepted from the get-go. Except at this point, it's far too late, as he's done infinitely more damage than he would have had he simply just zoomed off the first time, because it's apparent now that he was not motivated to leave by the threat Robotnik is posing to medieval Mobius, but by his blatant racism against cephalopods. What the f*** is wrong with you, Sonic? Right, so first and foremost, he should have known better than to let anything stand between him and another round of kicking Ivo's Robotniks. Sonic's the greatest hero in all of Mobius, after all, and the only one capable of standing against his antics on the regular. To actively refuse the call to action in favor of hanging out with a woman he literally just met is irresponsible to a comical degree. It would have been so simple for him to just say, "Oh yeah, I guess I better go stop Robotnik real quick, be right back." And because time travel is a key element here, he could pretty much be there and back again in seconds flat, right on time for a potential date. That is, if he wasn't such a xenophobic prick! Secondly, before I get carried away, I understand that he was stuck between a rock and a hard place in this scenario. He very much couldn't stay in the present, even if this lady was his type, because there was imminent danger happening over 1,000 years in the past. He had no time to waste, and he had to make a hasty decision. That by itself would have been an acceptable reason for him to ditch her moments before reaching first base. However, as I've very well established at this point, Sonic played the simp card and would have been completely content to go hooky for her all day instead. So much so that the only thing that could have convinced him to so callously abandon that idea would have been some not-so-subtle bigotry against what she is beneath the surface. Third off, yes, this is absolutely the direction my frustration was heading, because what else could it be? You'd think, in a world like Mobius that's populated by such a diverse cast of anthropomorphic characters, that there should be no room for this sort of intolerance here. But according to this scene, race-based prejudice is apparently so widespread across the planet that it can easily be practiced by as big a role model as Sonic without absolutely tanking his public reputation. He even did it right in front of Tails. What could he have possibly taken away from this stupid stunt, huh? Sonic has caused more damage to Mobian society with this one uncharacteristic act of hostility than Robotnik ever could. But we're beyond in-universe consequences at this point, because he never faced any of them before or after the deed. Tails never questioned his judgment, Professor Canine Stein never acknowledged the situation, and of course, the poor nameless victim could do nothing but cross her arms in disappointment before she was never seen again. Which perfectly transitions to my next point. Let's talk about the octopus. Can we talk about the octopus? I've been dying to talk to you about the octopus. You're probably wondering, what's so important about this octopus? She has less than a minute of screen time, more than half of which is spent buried neck deep in sand. Well, first of all, you're exactly right. And secondly, that's exactly what makes her such an interesting conversation piece. This character serves zero narrative purpose in Sonic's overarching story, and yet here she is. The story went out of its way to highlight her existence by having Sonic engage in this single interaction with her, and the cartoon followed suit by blessing her with this suspiciously fluid animation. But why? Why go to such lengths for a one-off character who was so shamefully played off as the butt of this insensitive joke? Oh yes, I might have been able to forgive this great sin had it been called into question and Sonic attempted to atone for his misogyny, but as you well know, he never did. And in fact, this scene was seemingly written with the express intent of comic relief. The only reason she started the scene off with her body obscured from view was to set up her cephalopod nature as the punchline, with Sonic's reactions to her face, arm, and then full body grossly exaggerated for some semblance of humorous effect. And if that's not enough, the cartoon itself spells it out plain as day, portraying her physical identity as the reason that Sonic shouldn't stay with her. But that just doesn't work! Because one, this is a planet populated by so many animals, and it shouldn't be a shock that those like her exist. Two, the octopus in question is literally the hottest character ever because of the tentacles, not in spite of them. And three, by having Sonic reject her for who she is, after accepting her for less than half the picture, and then not painting this vile behavior with the negative light it absolutely should have been cast in, it sends out a horrible message to anyone watching at home, especially the young impressionable audience this cartoon would have been targeting from the start. I can't tell if this was a gross oversight on the part of Sega or Deke, whichever one of those guys was truly responsible for this whole mess, or if this is meant to be an accurate reflection of how Sonic himself feels about the mollusca phylum. Because what the actual how did this make it past the storyboard? Genuinely how? Like, full stop. I need to know. How does a full team of producers, writers, artists, voice actors, etc. fucking miss a blunder this horrible? At any point in the process of bringing it from the script to the page to the screen, one wayward cog in this accursed machine could have brought production to a screeching halt to address the implications of Sonic's blatant discrimination. Yet here we are 30 years later, and not one soul seems to care. There should be an angry mob out there banging down Deke's door.
Hey, what's going on here? Get me out! Get me out!
Wow.
Hey, thank you!
Wow.
No!
Well, that's one way to go out. Is it because she's an octopus that she was cast into the role of an unassuming beachcomber and then portrayed as a sinister trap for the heroes to escape? Did Ursula really damage the goodwill of cephalopods so badly for nearly every single depiction of them since to be cast under a negative spotlight? Is Sonic's greatest sin merely a byproduct of an era of cultural incompetence imposed by f***ing Disney? This forever unnamed octopus girl did nothing wrong, and through no fault of her own, she faces the greatest punishment any fictional character can be dealt. To be forgotten. To watch as her very existence fades into obscurity. And then into nothing, as the only media she was ever a part of inevitably becomes lost to time. It's the fate of all these characters, and yet this one hurts the most. She was never given her time to shine when she had all the potential in the world to do so. She was never allowed to stand up for herself in the face of this grave injustice. And she was never meant for anything more than to be a one-off gag in a children's cartoon. Is this truly how the story ends? Or is it time we made some wrong things right? She deserves to be free, happy, and loved for who she is. And I refuse to let her drown in this hell they made for one more second. Aw, come on!